like how Kyle Shanahan is handling the quarterback situation?
Like is a strong word. I can't say that I like it. I don't have a problem with it, and I understand it because, well, I'm sort of numb at this point to the games that coaches in general and football coaches, NFL coaches in particular, the games that they play as far as hiding who's going to start and who's going to play, et cetera, et cetera. The fact of the matter is he does have two quarterbacks that are markedly different, and he would be giving a competitive advantage to their first opponent. I believe it's Green Bay coming out of the gate, if he were indeed to give away who they're playing in their first game. So I understand why he's doing it. When he goes and says, yeah, we have three quarterbacks, and he's including Nate Sudfeld in the group, now you're taking it a little bit too far. I will say this, though. I get the absolute sense that Kyle Shanahan is doing everything possible to make Trey Lance the starting quarterback of this team as soon as possible. And if he is going to utilize both of them, which he has hinted that he's going to, it doesn't really work unless you're starting Jimmy Garoppolo and then going to Trey Lance. You always go to the X factor, the dynamic quarterback coming off the bench, the wild card coming off the bench, Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick as an example. So it's either Jimmy Garoppolo starts and Trey Lance is seeing that spot duty. But if Trey Lance ends up being the starter, and I think that's ultimately what Kyle Shanahan is looking for, then indeed we're not going to see a whole lot of Jimmy Garoppolo. I just can't imagine that. But his playing games, I would imagine, in part, is because at this point, he genuinely doesn't know. He doesn't know when Trey Lance is going to be ready to take over that job full time. So at this point, he's still hedging his bet that I may have to go both ways, and Jimmy Garoppolo may get the nod.
Good old Nate Sudfeld, huh? Sudfeld. Listen, he can play. And in fact, he's partially part of the reason why Doug Peterson doesn't have a head coaching job right now is because, well, Doug Peterson wanted to see him play and see him play well, and that he did not do. But nonetheless, everybody that spoke on him spoke very highly of him. I not only think that this is a great decision as the way Coach Shanahan is handling this. I love the way that he's handling this. We continue to have the conversation. This is an amazing year for football in the National Football League because it is truly focused in on where everyone would want the focus to be, which is where? On the quarterback's position. I can't recall a year coming into the season where there has been this much coverage focused in on guys that are proven, guys that are unproven, quarterback battles, quarterback controversies. There's so many things that are going on. But when you sift through all of it, when you peel it back, when you cut through the fat of all of it, there's this idea of the value of every single quarterback that is on a football roster at this point in time, which I think is amazing for the game. It's amazing for the best reality TV show going. But it's also great for guys like Kyle Shanahan, who has value in keeping the value high of not only his starter or projected starter, not only the projected possible backup, but even the backup to the backup. There is value in having a quarterback that can go to another team and either be a starter in the midst of an injury adverse situation for a team or to be a backup. We just got done talking about Jameis Winston. He went from being a starter in this league to being a backup for an entire season. So we look at that value and the way that Shanahan is handling the media and handling this situation, he can't lose, really. If you start Trey Lance right out the gate, you may take the trade value of Jimmy Garoppolo down tremendously, but you still don't lose because the upside of it is if you've made that decision, chances are you believe that Trey Lance is going to be the guy and can handle that duty from day one. So you're not really looking at the collateral damage of Jimmy Garoppolo not being that guy. If you keep Jimmy Garoppolo in as that starter, now you're keeping Trey Lance in a position where, A, he's hungry to try to get that starting position, but B, while he's trying to get that starting position, he's getting to learn while not having the pressure of being the starter for a team that's expected to win and contend. That's a big shoe to step into, especially when that shoe belongs to the starter that is perceivably the starter right now. So looking at the scenario, Jimmy Garoppolo will all throw out the injury-prone situation and why he can't be the guy for the throws that he may miss. But I think that this is very wise and very prudent of Shanahan to handle it this way, because it ultimately sets him up to be able to create a winning situation for all of the quarterbacks that he has on his roster right now.
No, I don't think that I don't like the way that Shanahan is handling it, but I don't even want to get into that because I want to address what LaVar just said. So you're saying this is a good thing that there are all these quarterback battles around the NFL, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I could not disagree more. If my team has a quarterback battle, it's not going to be a good season for us. That's what I know. Because what I do know is we don't know who the guy is. So let's look at the teams. You mentioned the Saints that we just talked about having a quarterback battle. You feel like they have a good chance to make the playoffs or win their division this year?
A good chance to win the playoffs.
I don't think they do.
Playoffs.
I don't think they do. They're definitely not winning the division. That's not happening. So
that will
maybe
be tough,
maybe they can make the playoffs. They're definitely not winning the division. The Patriots, not winning the division. Cam Newton, Mac Jones, not winning the division. Maybe they can make the playoffs. Still a maybe. Jacksonville, not making the playoffs, not winning their division. Bears, maybe they can make the playoffs.
Maybe
not winning the division. Eagles, last in the division. And here we are with the Niners. So what you're telling me is that a quarterback controversy, a quarterback competition in camp is going to lead to it's not going to lead to winning a division because none of those teams you feel good about winning the division except for, which one did you say?
The 49ers.
The 49ers was the one we're talking about.
I wouldn't count
Jimmy
out the New Orleans Saints.
At some point, to me, if you're not going to name who the starter is, when does it become more of a controversy within the locker room or a problem in the locker room? We don't know who the guy is versus an advantage over your week one opponent. We know Aaron Rodgers is the starter week one in Green Bay. So you prepare for Aaron Rodgers. How much of a competitive advantage are you getting by not saying Jimmy Garoppolo is the starter week one? At what point does it become a problem in the locker room? Because to me, I'm starting to think maybe Jimmy Garoppolo isn't capable of starting week one because Trey Lance is the future of the organization. We know that. And we know that he's going to play this year. He's already said that, Kyle Shanahan has. We know he's going to have plays designed for him, and they're going to put him into different scenarios. So at what point does it become, I'm asking you, LaVar, because you've been in locker rooms, and I like to ask people who have experience in certain fields. You've been there. At what point are you in the locker room like, we still don't know who the guy is? When does that become a problem?
That's a kind of a complex question to answer because when you're a pro, you have to handle things as a professional. I mean, I was not a part of quarterback competitions. I was a part of quarterback controversies. My rookie year, right out the gate, before you even know what it's about being a pro and what that represents, I'm dealing with Brad Johnson as the starting quarterback, and they bring in Jeff George in free agency. So I can tell you a little bit about what free agent acquisitions or draft picks, what that looks like when they brought in Patrick Ramsey and they were trying to figure things out when Marty Schottenheimer came in. There are a lot of ways that vets and pros internalize position battles. I would say this. We all knew that if you don't have a quarterback that is good enough to lead the team, you don't have a real legitimate opportunity to win.
But that's what I'm saying. So how far into, at this point in camp, when does it become detrimental to the team that you don't know who the guy is versus getting a little bit of a competitive edge in week one by not allowing your first week opponent to prepare for one quarterback?
I think where you're coming from is a legit perspective, and I respect that. I think as it applies to the first part of what you said in terms of how good will these teams be? Sure, the San Francisco 49ers are the one team that has had the opportunity to pick high and get a legitimate draft pick, being a good team,
right.
a contending team.
Yes.
But when you have a big name like Trevor Lawrence and in a weak market like Jacksonville, and he's competing against Gardner Minshew for the starting job, sometimes those storylines are the only storylines that truly matter, to be honest. I don't know if they're even looking at them to be able to win games or to make it to the playoffs or to win in the Super Bowl. The idea of the storylines and why this is such a great time and great opportunity is because you're looking at the development of what could be your next group, your next level franchise quarterbacks that are coming into the league. So you're not going to have the New York Jets being a super competitive team. You probably aren't going to have the Jacksonville Jaguars being a super competitive team. Now, when I look at the New Orleans Saints, I think they're constructed well enough to possibly overcome some of the things that have taken place this past offseason. Whether it happens or not with Drew Brees not being there, some of the injuries or suspensions that have taken place with their roster, I still have seen Sean Payton overcome a whole lot to be able to keep this team winning. So I'm not going to write off the New Orleans Saints. And I believe this, if a coach is holding off on naming who he believes the starting quarterback is, it's generally because in a lot of ways we talk about the ability to be able to prepare for the guy and what that's going to look like going into the game week. But I also think that there's something to be said. Once you declare who your starter is going to be, you're going to go with who that starter is. And sometimes it's very difficult to backtrack, whether it be with the media, but more importantly, with your team. You don't want your team sitting there, I'm calling starter this week, but I didn't like the way that he played this week, so I'm going to change up and I'm going to go to this guy and I'm going to make him a starter that week. I think that whoever ends up being named the starter by week one, going into that week one game, I think that there's a person that you're going to go with and you're going to attach your cart, so to speak, your wagon, to see if you can have success with that guy. And you have to give them somewhat of a significant amount of time to be able to prove that you made the right decision, because making this decision is just as much on you, sometimes on the GM, as it is on the player that's going out there to represent you as your starting quarterback.
Well, this has devolved into the value of QB battles, and I would say that not all of them are created equal, or that having a definitive starting quarterback is necessarily a sign that you're in a good place. Zach Wilson in New York, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. Do we have competition in those situations? Supposedly not. I look at the 49ers situation with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think it's an embarrassment of riches. They're going to be good either way. It's just a matter of how quickly Trey Lance comes along. But if Trey Lance doesn't, I would have to think, and I think you agree with this, Joy, that they'd be in perfectly good shape if Jimmy Garoppolo, if healthy, ends up being the quarterback there. So ultimately, I look at the way Kyle Shanahan is playing this, and I think it comes back to this. So the fact that he's played Trey Lance as much as he had, and the first signal for me was in the first exhibition when he brought him back for a series in the second half. Like, the plan was not that, but he clearly wanted to give him a little more rope, to give him a little more time. He's trying, knowing that he only played one game last year at North Dakota State, he's trying to give him as much as he can to see how quickly he can evolve. But that's a moving target. And so the fact that he's playing this, I would normally look at it as coy. I believe it's genuine. Like, he doesn't really know who his starting quarterback for week one is going to be at this point.
You know, just to add to Joy's point, I mentioned the 2000 Washington football team. Brad Johnson was the quarterback of a playoff contending team the year before in 99. They brought Jeff George in 2000, and we did fail to make it to the playoffs, by the way. That team had Darryl Green, Deion Sanders, Champ Bailey, Marco Coleman, Kennard Lang, Irvin Fryer, Stephen Davis, Skip Hicks. Do you want me to keep going? John Jansen.
You got to have the guy. You got to have
Chris
the guy.
Samuels.
I agree with you, Rick, that the Niners are in a very, and LaVar said this too, they are in the most unique situation as far as these quarterback battles go. And each of these teams, I think, are very different and have different situations within their own quarterback competition. But my overreaching point is, if you aren't going into the season knowing who your guy is, you got some questions at that position, even if you do have a rookie who you know is going to be the future of the organization. It is an embarrassment of riches because you are going to be able to use Trey Lance in some unique situations, and Jimmy Garoppolo has played in the Super Bowl. So it's the best quarterback competition situation out of all of these teams. but you still are undecided on who the guy is. And to me, that leaves the Niners with some serious question marks going into what's nearing the end of the preseason.